Hey bookish friends, it is the 24th of October and I have not filmed any updates whatsoever. So I'm going to try to squeeze one in so I don't have to remember an entire month's worth of books in one go. Do have my ebooks written down, so as long as I look at that, I will remember them, hopefully. Alright. I think I'm going to end up reading more than I did last month, which, yay! But I did have a break week there, so maybe that helped. First up, I did finish Anne of Ingleside. This was the September book for Chantal Ray's All Days Year of Maud read-along, and I quite enjoyed this one. It was interesting reading this, having read Rilla of Ingleside last year or the year before, and the hints and foreshadowing of the Great War coming, because I think two of Anne's sons end up going and fighting in it. And yeah, not much more I can say. It's the 6th book in the series. It was a nice, lovely read. And I did read also the September pages of The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady. And this is just beautiful. I'm glad I'm taking my time to enjoy it and to be inspired to notice things in nature. This is going to go back on my stack, and I hope to get the October pages read before my next update. And then, speaking of enjoying things, taking things slowly, I finally finished The Life-Giving Home by Sally and her daughter Sarah Clarkson. And I had started this in October last year, and it does have 12 chapters, one for each month after the first chunk of book. I don't remember how many chapters there were beforehand, but it was nice to have one chapter to read a month, to have something to focus on for each month. And I read October's chapter at the very beginning of the month. I loved this book. I hope to read Sally's The Life-Giving Table next year, just a little sneak peek at my reading plans, and to just have another book of hers to savor and enjoy. And there's no cover here. I might just put up the cover. Maybe I'll do it on the side. I don't know what my framing looks like. I drew this book for Didn't Get To last year. That's also one of the reasons why it was on my 25 to read in 2025 list. I borrowed this copy from a friend, so I actually need to take out my card so I can return this to her. This is a hard book to describe without giving away any spoilers. It's best to just go into this book blind, knowing that it is set, I think, around 175 AD, and it is Roman occupied Britain, and the main character, he is in charge of a dragon or a legion of soldiers. They originally attacked the Romans and then were conquered themselves, and instead of wiping all of their soldiers out, they're not even soldiers, they're cavalry. Instead of wiping them all out, they are sent to Britain to help patrol the Hadrian Wall, which was the divider between Britain and what is current day Scotland, which was occupied by the Picts at the time. Hopefully that intrigued you. I'd never read a book set in that time, so it was quite interesting. And I finally got to Beyond Mulberry Glen. I had picked this book up in January when it first came out, and I was excited to read it, but then I sneaked a peek at the first sentence, and it mentioned autumn, and I drew set in the current season, and so I held on to it, and held on to it, and I'm glad I did. It was a nice autumnal read, middle grade, about change and growing up, and yes, I quite enjoyed it. I think I'm going to pass this along to my friend's daughter for her to read. I tried to listen to the audiobook. I got very confused, and since I had the physical copy, I was able to look it up. And the audiobook copy that my library had, I don't know if this is the case for more than that one, it had the first 3 chapters, and then it skipped to chapter 8, and then it skipped back to chapter 4, and then had chapters 4 through 7, and then skipped to chapter 9. So, and after that, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna read the book because it really took me out of the story, and I was so confused. And the last, oh, I have not talked about either of my boys are watching a video in their room. Haven't talked about either of my ebooks. I finished whichever side it is, Crown of Fire by Kathy Tyers. This is the 3rd book in the Firebird series. It finishes the story arc from the first 2 books, and Firebird ends up returning to her homeworld because of various political things, and this may have been my first favorite book in the series. I definitely enjoyed it way more than book 2. Book 2 is just hard because the characters are going through difficult things, which were necessary for the events in book 3 to take place. But, if you want a book that's going to call out pride and like the whole chosen one mentality, and how sometimes pride can sneak up on us even when we are trying to do the Lord's will, this one will get you. And I loved it. I really appreciated that definite strong Christian themes in this one. And yeah, I really do recommend the series as a whole. Push through book 2. It's hard because the characters go through some rough things, but they're necessary for their character growth and to set up events for book 3. Yeah. And I'll go ahead and talk about, I read volume 5 of the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. Not much I can say, except this one takes place in November and December of 1883. And this book, I think, handles well grief and how it can hit you at a different time than, specifically, she lost a loved one, and his burial in book 4 like triggered her to finally grieve in book 5 because it's like 3 years later, and it's 3 years after the other person had died. Not 3 years after volume 4. And her friends like calling her out and being like, don't lose yourself in your grief, we're worried about you. And it was lovely, very Christmassy feeling at the end because it ends with the end of the year. And not the last book I finished this month, but the last one I'm remembering to talk about is Stone Cold by Shatona Havig. This is an Agency Files adjacent book. We do have a character from book 6. He's no longer with the agency. He ends up falling off a ladder and breaking his leg, and he finds is found by someone who sneaked into his house, who is on the run from these goons. It has Home Alone vibes, awesome, talking about pizza and Christmas movies and Christmas music, while still having that suspense of our character is wanted by these men and she has no idea why. And that's the last one I have to talk about today. I'll go over what I counted these for the challenge and everything in my next clip, because then I can just go over the whole months in one go. So I'll see you again in about a week. It's November 1st. I finished a book yesterday. Yay! Finished 10 books this month, which is more than last month. And I don't know if that's because we had a week off school or because I chose shorter books or a combination. But the next book I finished was Truth Cursed by Angie Dickinson. Last I knew, this book was less than $3 on Amazon, and I have it linked below if you want to pick up a copy. It was great. I didn't quite give it 5 stars. Just, I don't know if there's things about the characters because it's a YA book or not. I thought it could have been a little bit better, but that may be nitpicky. But our main character, Cressida, I don't know how you say that name, is cursed when she's 8 by her aunts with this concoction that makes it so she can only tell the truth if asked a direct question. And she ends up at this finishing school that has some interesting classes like fencing and what was the other one? Lock picking, poison making. Very intriguing. I really enjoyed it. And I drew this one for random letter generator for the title's first letter. Oh, I finished another ebook. I think that makes 3 for the month. The Lost Boys of Barlow Theater by Jamie Jo Wright. Finally got one of her regular books read. It was also on my 25 Dream 2025 list. This one has 2 timelines. I believe the earlier one is 1915 and a current day. It's set in October, which made it the perfect choice for this month. Very interesting tale. This woman is at the theater with her rich friends. They invite her to go with her, and she sees a baby like thrown out of one of the box seats and land on the ground, and is very traumatized, especially because her brother died while working on building the theater, and just some interesting things happen. Her brother and one of her younger brothers and 2 of his friends go missing while looking for information in the theater. And current day, there's this TV show called Psychic and the Skeptic, and while filming a ghost walk in the theater, a woman goes missing, and the character is one of her best friends, and she wants to know what happened to Maddie. It was really good. I very much enjoyed it. If you want a creepy book, even though we are going into November, I still recommend Jamie Jo's. Always good. And before I get to my last book, I did read the October pages from The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady. That she must have really liked October because there were a lot of pages set in October, and I really liked it. Like I always say, this is like, I wish I had the skill to make something that pretty. And yes, if you haven't read this book, highly recommend it. It's got different observations on plants when birds like leave the area, come into the area, just all sorts of interesting observations. The feast days for saints and so on and so forth. It's quite lovely. I'm enjoying my time with it. I've got 2 more months with it. And then the last book I finished, which I finished yesterday, was On Stories by C.S. Lewis. Just a collection of essays on literature, authors, criticism, and other things. And because it was a mix, I don't feel like I can give the whole book a rating, because obviously the ones that were just on literature and fiction in general and criticism and such, I could read and understand and enjoy, and the ones like I've read Dorothy Sayers, I've read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, so I was able to enjoy those essays. But some of them, like the ones on authors I don't know, I'm like, I don't know. And there were some definitely things that went over my head and stretched me a bit, and maybe I got something out of it, maybe I didn't. So, yeah. If you are interested in Lewis's thoughts on various topics, it's a good read. Oh, this one was also on my 25 to read in 2025 list, so I did manage to knock off 2 of them this month. Now, if you want to follow along on my reading journal, continue. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in. So for the Read Your Bookshelf Challenge, I read Island of Ghosts for the history prompt and Truth Cursed for weapon on the cover for the buzzword cover challenge. And series, don't really need to talk about those. Like I said, I read 10 books in my little shelf all filled in. I color code them according to genre. And I just realized I didn't mark the 5-star ones. Whoops. I gave 4 books 5 stars this month. The Life-Giving Home, Crown of Fire, Stone Cold, and Emma M. Lyon Volume 5. I chose Crown of Fire as my favorite book of the month. It was excellent. I'm thinking about getting a copy of that one and the second book so I can loan the series out to friends. I'm on track to finish my 25 books to read in 2025 list. I have 4 left, so if I continue with 2 a month, I will finish on time. And then let's see, I was doing Chantel's Autumn Reading Bingo card. I did Stone Cold for a short story or book under 200 pages because I think it was 177. The Lost Boys of Barlow Theater for the creepy prompt, and Emma M. Lyon Volume 5 for cozy. I just have the baking and orange on the cover prompts, which for baking, Beyond Mulberry Glen did talk about some baking because one of the characters definitely baked muffins at some point. So I'm still trying to decide if I want to count that one. I'll also just kind of keep an eye out on the other books that I read for the month to see if baking comes up. Now that I think about it, Emma M. Lyon does talk about her cook and the delicious things she makes. And Volume 6 is on my list to read next month. And I already have an orange book picked out, so I should knock those off too. And sad, look at my TBR. Out of the 5 books I put on it, I finished 3. I am reading Sky of 7 Colors though, so that one I will finish. I don't know if I'm going to read Rainbow Valley or not. I don't know. I might just kind of see how November goes because it would be a reread, so I don't necessarily feel the need to push myself to read that one. So yes, those are the 10 books I finished this month, plus the one I'm slowly reading out of for the year. Let me know what your favorite book was that you read this month. That's my timer for my bread. So until next week, happy reading.